Hey guys, so this is Mr. Lee with another lesson on another health lesson for you to be looking at and learning from for today. Today we're going to be talking about the cycle of addiction. So a lot of you, if you're with my class, you're going to be following along with the note sheet and getting information from me. I'm not going to just read off the PowerPoint, even though I may look to it as guidance for some things. I might expand upon a few things, but relatively, this is going to be a shorter video. We could go to more depth with that, but we're going to talk about the cycle of addiction. So the first thing we'll talk about is misuse. So um, when someone starts getting addicted to anything in life, it could be addiction to exercise even. But when it comes to drugs, using drugs often starts with certain personality traits. So when someone first starts using drugs, it's kind of dependent on how their personality is. A lot of people, when they first use it, is because they're curious, right? Or they're looking for a thrill. They seek thrill-seeking behaviors, such as wanting to experience something, getting the rush of feeling a certain way. Sometimes people will use drugs because of their negative attitude. Um, they use it to escape or feel a certain way. They may be feeling down. They may be feeling like no one wants to be with them, or they feel like there's no one there that cares about them. So they turn to drugs because of how they feel with that. Another one could be impulsiveness. So not really thinking about your decisions, just jumping into it. And also, some people use drugs to escape what's called anxiety. Anxiety is, it's hard to explain, where you have this fear of daily life. You have this fear where certain things need to be a certain way, and if they aren't, it's the feeling of the lack of control, the not knowing about what's going to happen. People get anxiety about that, or they have anxiety of how, if they think people are looking at them. It's just one example of anxiety. So people start using drugs or getting addicted to something because of their personality at first, okay? But also peers, such as their people they hang out with, they might use and might peer pressure them into doing drugs. The media could send mixed messages with that. A lot of times, marijuana is portrayed as something that's not a very harmful substance in media. However, we do know that younger kids without fully developed frontal lobes are experiencing negative brain maturation or maturing because they are using drugs so early. Their decision making is impaired, their memory is impaired. The brains aren't fully developed, as science says, until age 25. Also, people will use if they have a lack of role models. So if they see a parent or the lack thereof of a parent, they're going to want to use drugs as well. So that's an increased chance of addiction. So once you start, addiction is when you can't stop. You have to have a substance. Okay? Everyone starts, every addict, every person who's addicted to drugs started with the first time. Okay? Started with the first time that they used. Studies actually say is if teenagers or students don't use before 15, the age 15, they're less likely to abuse later in life. So 15 years old is about that sophomore area. If they don't use drugs before 15, they're less likely to use. So that's why it's important that even as young as sixth grade that we're talking about this kind of stuff. Okay? So trying to hold off the kids from using drugs. Next slide here. All right, so one thing that we'll talk about too, I'll move me up here, is the brain. So the brain is very complex, right? It's very good at remembering things that it likes to do, such as if you tasted chocolate cake for the first time, it remembers the taste of chocolate cake. If you enjoyed the chocolate cake, it remembers that enjoyment. It remembers how it tastes. It remembers everything about that chocolate cake because it's training you your brain is telling you that it likes that certain thing. Therefore, it's looking for that same pleasure, that same good feeling of eating that chocolate cake. However, when you like to do certain things, such as eat a particular food, your brain remembers that feeling by releasing a chemical called dopamine and serotonin. However, when you use certain drugs, that dopamine and serotonin will also be released from your brain. Okay? That's why drugs, when people start first using them, they feel so good. They feel great. They have the most intense feelings, right? But the problem is, when you eat that cake and it tastes good, your brain remembers that because it wants you to eat more, okay? Or get that same chocolate cake. So your brain is responsible for addiction. So again, those chemicals, dopamine and serotonin, those are called the feel-good chemicals. When you feel good from eating or using drugs, you're more likely to do them again. However, again, the problem comes where when you use hard drugs or drugs in general, your brain wants that feeling. So therefore, it's going to seek out that feeling and it wants more of that. And if you have enough of it, your brain is going to be reliant or addicted to that substance. So for example, if you smoke cigarettes, there's a chemical called nicotine in tobacco that your brain gets addicted to. And if you have enough of it over a period of time, your brain is expecting that nicotine. And if you don't have that nicotine in your day, you're going to feel really, really bad. Another example is coffee. Coffee has caffeine. If you don't have caffeine, some big coffee drinkers that have it every day, if they don't have their caffeine, they're going to feel really grumpy. They're going to have headaches. They're going to feel very fatigued or tired. So that's what happens when you're addicted. Your brain needs it. So again, addiction happens when your brain and your body are addicted to the substance or the thing that you like to do. Such as, yes, you can be addicted to exercise. Yes, you could be addicted to playing with your dog. Who knows? These things that your brain remembers that it feels good, it wants to repeat. So again, drugs aren't the only thing that people can be addicted to. So like pot or caffeine, cigarettes with nicotine, those aren't the only things people can be addicted to. Things like working out too much can also be bad for you because of possibility of injuries. Cliff jumping, rock climbing, roller coasters, and other thrilling things can also be addictive because of the dopamine or the rush that it gives your brain. So once your brain and your body identify the behavior it wants to repeat, it's very hard to train yourself not to do that thing. So if someone's smoking and it's something that your brain, your body is expecting, it's hard to stop smoking at first. Okay, because your brain is expecting that smoking. When your brain is expecting it and when you don't have it, you go through what's called a withdrawal symptom. So when you have withdrawal symptoms or effects, they can be so severe that people feel very sick. However, when people are in rehab, there are certain measures in place to make the person feel better and get over the addiction without too much pain. So when a person does not have a drug or the thing they like to do, they feel not themselves. So brain problems include, when you go through withdrawals, include being irritable, being tired, not being able to think clearly, can't control their emotions, things like that. Body issues, though, are you may sweat more if you don't have it. You may have shaking hands. You may feel tired. You have weaknesses. There's other effects that affect your brain as well. So hopefully this gave you enough information to fill out the sheet and a little bit about what addiction is, how it occurs, what can happen, and how your brain is trained to it. I'll leave off on one note. If someone is addicted to a drug, it's not like they know that they need to stop, but it is really hard for them because their brain tells them that they need that certain drug. Just because someone uses drugs doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they're addicted to something and they can't stop, or they choose not to stop in some cases. So even if someone wants to stop, it's very hard in some cases to stop that drug or behavior. So hopefully that helped you out with addiction. Go ahead and try to answer the sheets to best of your ability.